Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 124 based on novel. So let's start. On the void, Xiao Yang's breath was almost weak to the extreme. At this time, even a small fighter could easily kill him. Xiao Yan stood proudly in front of Xiao Yang with a tall and straight posture. He pointed a long gun at the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrows and was cold. The invisible power made Xiao Yang's soul tingle. I admire your courage, but unfortunately, half-emperor is only half-emperor after all. No matter how many means you have, it's useless to be fancy in front of your absolute strength. Zhao Xian looked down at Xiao Yang from a commanding position. The long gun in his hand was slowly lifted up for an inch. The cold orn condensed. The silver fighting spirit like a star gradually condensed on the gun tip, sending out a slight buzzing sound. While the words fell, Zhao Xian's wrist trembled, and his long gun shook, so he wanted to fall head-on to Xiao Yang's head. If this shot really falls, Xiao Yang will die. But at this moment, Murong Qianqian on the other side saw Xiao Yang in a situation of life and death, and the girl's heart suddenly became anxious. She could no longer care whether the person in front of her was a strong man fighting the emperor. Her delicate body moved, and in a twinkling of an eye, she turned into a huge blue bird. At the same time, the giant bird uttered a fierce cry like thunder, and the huge wings slapped hard. The next moment, the giant bird transformed by Murong Qianqian appeared in front of Zhao Xian. Compared with Zhao Xian at the moment, the giant bird's huge body is like a grass standing in front of Mount Tai. The gap is like a great difference between heaven and earth. However, even if Murong Qianqian did his best, it was still not worth mentioning in Zhao Xian's eyes. Oh, the original body is actually a warcraft, but it's still vulnerable. The words fell. Zhao Xian's sharp spear, which had fallen on Xiao Yang's head, was forcibly taken back at the moment when he was about to touch Xiao Yang. Once the spear was swung, it swept and bombarded the giant bird at the moment when the giant bird was about to hit Zhao Xian. The power of terror poured out in an instant. In the eyes of Xiao Yang with shock and anger, with the power of destroying the withered and decaying, he blew the giant bird transformed by Murong Qianqian out with one blow. Where I passed, the blood poured all over the sky and immediately dyed a large area of the sky red. At the same time, the breath on the giant bird also became weak at this moment. Do you really think everyone can fight against this one? Slowly take back the long gun, Zhao Xian raised his eyes and said in a neutral tone. Then he looked at Xiao Yang again, and gradually aroused a sneer at the corners of his mouth. You are really a charming person. You can not only let the strong fight emperor fight for you, but also let a small 4-star and a half emperor have the courage to challenge him. However, that's all. With a sneer, Zhao Xian shot Xiao Yang again, but then Zhao Xian couldn't help frowning slightly. His eyes turned, and a pair of silver-white pupils couldn't help shrinking suddenly. He was even more surprised. The people who walked with Xiao Yang were all such strange demons. I saw the giant bird that had been blown out by Zhao Xian, but now it was the next time to prop up the badly injured body. With the hoarse scream coming from his mouth, the huge body wanted to attack Zhao Xian again. It's beyond your power. Since you are so willing to die for him, I'll send you on the road first. Nevertheless, Zhao Xian's heart is still full of disdain for the behavior of the giant bird in front of him. A 4-star and a half emperor can't change the fact that he is weak. Even if he is tough, in the eyes of the strong, these are just stubbornness. Only strength is the root of everything. This time, Zhao Xian took back his long gun and took it into his ring at will. In his opinion, the two men in front of him are just stubborn stones of last resort. They can't be his opponents after exhausting everything. If Zhao Xian really wants to kill them directly, he only needs one blow. Now, he just wants to see whether Xiao Yang still has the power to resist the semi-emperors who can be blacklisted by the 4 major gates. As for Murong Qianqian, Zhao Xian didn't take it to heart from beginning to end. The palm slowly lifted up, and Sen's white fighting spirit condensed in the palm. In the twinkling of an eye, a silver-white fighting spirit light group the size of the palm condensed out in Zhao Xian's hand. At the next moment, the giant bird with extremely weak breath appeared in front of Zhao Xian again. He did his best and gave the last blow to Zhao Xian. At the same time, Zhao Xian also paid attention to Xiao Yang behind him. At the same time, he blasted out in front of him. The silver fighting light group emits a bright light like a meteor in the void. The light is dazzling. In this day, it can compete with the rising sun, which makes people unable to look directly. On the other side, Xiao Yang, who was also nearly seriously injured, stared at Zhao Xian's back with a ferocious face. A pair of blood-stained palms suddenly clenched at the moment. Because of the strong force, there was a clicking sound between the bone joints, as if all the bones were squeezed together at the moment. Bang! The violent explosion shook the sky. At the moment of the explosion of the silver fighting light, the whole world lost its original brilliance. Xiao Yan's face, which was as white as a fierce ghost, aroused a ferocious smile. Immediately after the next moment, his body suddenly twisted and looked behind him. At the same time, where Xiao Yan stood, at the moment when the white light swept the world, his body also disappeared in an instant. Hihi, do you want to fight hard? Come on, let me see your last blow. The silver eyes twinkled slightly. Xiao Yan turned his left hand and blew out his palm again. At the same time, the silver fighting spirit also condensed rapidly again. However, at the next moment, the look on Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed. In the void filled with white light in front of him, a painted black tent suddenly condensed out. At the same time, Xiao Yan with a crazy face also appeared in front of Xiao Yan. His clenched right fist was raised high, and at the moment when Xiao Yan's left hand blew out, he had already made a solid fist and bombarded Xiao Yan in the palm of his left hand. Click! Two crisp sounds of bone fracture resounded through. Because of Xiao Yan's sudden fist, the fighting spirit just gathered in Xiao Yan's palm was instantly dispersed, and the power of counterattack collided everywhere in Xiao Yan's left arm. Then, the terrible strength brought by Xiao Yan's fist also smashed Xiao Yan's left arm bone with one blow. However, at the same time, because of this crazy blow, Xiao Yan, who was already seriously injured, was completely seriously injured at the moment. The bones of his right arm were also crushed by the fierce bombardment with Xiao Yan. Of course, normally speaking, Xiao Yan seems to have taken advantage of this collision and let Xiao Yan suffer a loss. However, it is because of Xiao Yan's state at the moment that Xiao Yan completely lost all his combat power after this attack. Even a move is completely impossible. As a matter of fact, the so-called losing both sides can only make Xiao Yan slightly hurt. Above the void, Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed. The severe pain from his left arm made him like lightning. At the same time, an extremely angry mood also rose rapidly in Xiao Yan's heart. Tang Tang fought against the emperor and was injured again because of 1.5 emperors. This kind of thing has made him unbearable no longer. Ah, die. With a roar, Xiao Yan hit Xiao Yan's chest with his right palm. Suddenly, the terrible force poured out wildly, and the decaying force immediately flattened Xiao Yan's chest. If you look from the side, you can clearly see that Xiao Yan's thick body is as thin as a leaf at the moment. The sound of bone breaking came from Xiao Yan's body. At this moment, the bones on Xiao Yan's whole chest were broken. Xiao Yan's palm almost took half of Xiao Yan's life. Bang! With a sound like a balloon explosion, the next moment, Xiao Yan's body was blown out by Xiao Yan. Wherever he went, blood was spewed out of Xiao Yan's mouth like money, and Xiao Yan's face quickly turned pale. One palm blew Xiao Yan away, but Xiao Yan didn't want to stop. He gave a cold hum in his nose. His face looked fierce. His strong body disappeared into the void again in a moment. The next moment, his broad palm had fallen on Xiao Yan's neck. With a little force, he lifted Xiao Yan, who flew backward in his hand. Xiao Yan, die! Then, when Xiao Yan's mouth was full of venomous words, he didn't wait for his palm to force. In his neck, a penetrating chill that made him cold all over his body quickly hit his whole body. At the moment of the cold, Xiao Yan's body suddenly solidified, and a pair of silvery white pupils instantly shrunk to the size of a needle tip. An unprecedented sense of fear poured out like a spring from the bottom of his heart. Ah! With a cry in his heart, Xiao Yan's conditioned reflex wanted to turn back. At this time, a thick voice full of indifference came from behind him. If you dare to move, I'll kill you right away. Although the voice is indifferent, the overbearing meaning in that discourse is frightening. With Xiao Yan's strength, Rao felt a deep fear in his heart. He had no doubt about the words of the mysterious man. Being able to appear behind him without his awareness is so easy to control his neck. This kind of person is not an ordinary person. At least, Xiao Yan admits that the strength of the other party is definitely far above him. Seeing Xiao Yan no longer dare to act, the man behind him spoke again. His indifferent tone is beyond doubt. Let him go. Hearing the speech, Zhao Zhaozhong's face suddenly coagulated, and he was very surprised. Unexpectedly, this person came for Xiao Yan. In front of Xiao Yan, how attractive is he? He can even attract such a strong person to protect him. With a light sigh, Zhao Yan immediately felt that his neck was cold, and the chill that made him cold all over was even worse at the moment, making his face instantly bloodless and his lips a little purple. Immediately, Xiao Yan didn't dare to hesitate anymore. He quickly released Xiao Yang, who was in control. Suddenly, Xiao Yang's body fell uncontrollably. Then, it was propped up by an invisible force. Seeing that Xiao Yang, who would have died in his own hands, was rescued again, Zhao Xian's heart was also full of reluctance, but at the moment, even his own life was also in the hands of others. He was afraid he couldn't obey. Sir, I have let him go. I wonder if you can. Bang! Zhao Xian's voice didn't fall, but a huge force suddenly came from behind. A white palm exploded at Zhao Xian's vest at will, but the power burst out made Zhao Xian's face suddenly change. The powerful force poured into Zhao Xian's body like a broken bamboo. With the momentum of destroying the withered and decaying, he was injured in an instant. However, it was also the reason why the strong man deliberately kept his hand. Puff! When Zhao Xian's face turned pale and stopped his body, even if he couldn't help spewing out a mouthful of blood, the whole person's breath weakened rapidly. You! The moment he stopped, Zhao Xian immediately looked at the man who attacked him. Unexpectedly, he had done what he said, and he still shot at himself. Why, do you have any dissatisfaction? Or do you want to challenge me? The indifferent voice came again. It's not hard to hear that there was a faint killing intention in that tone. If you can, the other party doesn't seem to mind killing Zhao Xian, which is obviously very easy for him. I wonder where you come from. We don't seem to have a holiday. Zhao Xian stared cautiously at the handsome middle-aged man in brocade robes opposite, arched his hands and said solemnly, We never met before. Then sir, this is. But you hurt someone you shouldn't have hurt. The mysterious strong man's words fell, and Zhao Xiaozheng's face was suddenly frozen. It seemed that he was a little unclear about his words. Fourth uncle, what's more nonsense with him? This kind of person can kill him directly. However, just when Zhao Xian was full of doubts, suddenly, the girl's angry scolding came suddenly, which made Zhao Xian's face suddenly change. He looked intently. It was Murong Qianqian who came into his eyes. Seeing Murong Qianqian, Zhao Xian was suddenly stunned. Immediately after that, a sense of horror poured out from the bottom of his heart, and then he quickly looked at the middle-aged man who was turned into the fourth uncle by Murong Qianqian. At the same time, the latter is also narrowing his eyes and staring at him with a cold face. Seeing this, Zhao Xian was even more surprised. He quickly bowed to the middle-aged man and apologized hurriedly, saying, I don't know your identity. I hurt her by mistake. I hope you don't mind. If you can, I'm willing to take out anything on my body as compensation. Hearing the speech, Murong Qianqian couldn't help humming coldly and wanted to speak to the middle-aged man again, but she didn't need to speak. The middle-aged man stared at Zhao Xian with empty eyes and said coldly, Are you really willing to take out anything on your body as compensation? Yes. Hearing the speech, Zhao Xian was careless, arched his hand, and said without hesitation, It would be great if you could borrow money. Then break your arm. What? At the moment when the words in the mysterious population fell, the look on Zhao Xian's face also changed suddenly, and he couldn't help but burst out of his mouth. You don't seem to understand what I'm saying. Then, the mysterious man spoke again, and with his words falling, an invisible momentum of terror gathered rapidly in the void in front of the mysterious man. Then, it turned into an invisible wave and suddenly attacked Zhao Xian. Seeing this scene, Zhao Xian was shocked instantly. His body was soft. He knelt down directly on the void. This scene formed an extremely sharp contrast with Xiao Yang's desperate counterattack before. I am willing to fully obey your arrangement, but please help me. I will do everything you want. Zhao Xian almost shrunk into a ball and knelt on the void. When he said this, his body could not help shaking violently. From his voice, he could easily hear the fear in the latter's heart at the moment. Hearing this, the look on the mysterious middle-aged face did not change, but Murong Qianqian, a delicate and pretty face that has recovered a little ruddy color, is full of an expression of disdain at the moment. In order to survive, Xiao Yang did everything and even exhausted his last strength. Although his opponent's strength made him unable to return to heaven after all, at least his action was admirable. Looking back at Zhao Xian kneeling in front of her at the moment, there is no contrast between the two. Since you said to do it, what are you waiting for now? The indifferent voice came out again, and the tone was colder than before. For the bullying Zhao Xian, the middle-aged people also have a disdain in their hearts. Hearing the middle-aged man's words again, Zhao Xian couldn't help tightening his heart slightly. The already white face on his face became bloodless at this moment. The right hand under his sleeve robe slowly clenched, but he didn't mean to start. Seeing this, the middle-aged man couldn't help passing a cold light in his eyes. Since you are reluctant to do it, let me do it for you. The middle-aged population gave a cold voice, and immediately followed. Without waiting for the look on Xiao Yan's face to change, the middle-aged man waved his big hand. Suddenly, a bright and dazzling fighting spirit was trained, and with sharp strength, it immediately crossed the void like a knife light. When Xiao Yan regained his consciousness, it had crossed his right shoulder. At this moment, Xiao Yan was stunned. His silver eyes showed a deep color of shock. Because of the violent emotional fluctuation in his heart, he seemed to forget the pain on his right shoulder for a moment. The right arm cut off by fighting Qi lost all intuition in an instant. The whole broken arm showed a state of spasm, became stiff like a corpse, and quickly fell into the mountains below. Until after the good film, when Xiao Yan trembled and recovered from the upheaval, a scream of pain and scream suddenly rang through the world. All the fighting spirit in Xiao Yan's body revolted wildly at this moment. Circles of Mori white fighting spirit ripples quickly rolled around with Xiao Yan's body as the center. An unprecedented ferocious look appeared on a pale face. In a pair of silvery white pupils, what is full of at the moment is a scarlet color that almost wants to bite people. The turbulent killing intention is self-evident. People can't help feeling cold when they see it. However, the middle-aged man didn't care. A cold hum, like a basin of cold water, instantly extinguished Xiao Yan's anger. His mouth uttered a hoarse low groan. Xiao Yan's body trembled violently. I don't know whether it was anger or fear. There was no luster in his silver eyes. The whole person was like a body without soul, kneeling on the void. You. Who are you? It was not until a long time later that the low and hoarse voice came out of Xiao Yan's mouth again. The hoarse voice almost made people unable to recognize the general meaning. However, the middle-aged man raised his eyes slightly. After a slight pause, a sneer arose from the corners of his mouth. Immediately, he said indifferently, "Human? I'm not human. But I think I'm more human than you." The last words of the middle-aged man, I don't know whether they were sneer or sarcasm, but it made Xiao Yan's face slightly change. Fourth uncle, why do such people talk so much with him? Just kill them directly. It's a disaster to keep them anyway. At this time, Murong Qianqian on one side could not help speaking again. I thought that a middle-aged man on one side would kill Xiao Yan, but she didn't expect that he didn't want to kill him all the time. It seemed that he wanted to let him go, which made Murong Qianqian feel puzzled and dissatisfied at the same time. Kill him? Hearing the speech, the middle-aged man looked straight at him and asked in a flat voice. Of course I did, but he almost killed Xiao Yang. He nodded heavily. Murong Qianqian stared at the middle-aged man, as if waiting for the latter's action. Hearing the speech, the middle-aged man glanced at Xiao Yang with his eyes closed. His eyes narrowed, and a light flashed through the depths of his pupils. Immediately, he looked at Murong Qianqian again, glanced at the latter, and said, "If he wants to run, this guy may not be able to catch up with him. The reason why he is in danger is just because of you. Now you say he hurt Xiao Yang. In my opinion, it's you." Once the middle-aged man said this, Murong Qianqian's pretty face did not change, and he was speechless for a time. Seeing this, the middle-aged man no longer said much, but turned his eyes to Xiao Yan, narrowed his eyes, spoke again in a gloomy tone, and said, "Don't want to live?" First, he was stunned. Immediately, Xiao Yan hurried back to his mind and looked at the middle-aged man with a frightened face. At the moment, the bone of his left arm was broken and his right arm was cut off. He could only bend down in pain and kowtow to the middle-aged man. "I know I'm wrong. I hope you can let me live." When he said this, Xiao Yan's face showed a look of longing, and the middle-aged man was too lazy to pay attention. He glanced casually and said coldly again, "Since you want to live, don't you go away?" As the words of the middle-aged population fell, Xiao Yan also hurried back to his mind. He was surprised at this. At the same time, his body kneeling in the void quickly climbed up, gritted his teeth, endured the heart-piercing pain from all over his body, and quickly turned to the distant sky and ran away without looking back. Until Xiao Yan completely disappeared in the sky, the middle-aged man took back his eyes and looked at Murong Qianqian again. At this time, the latter is also looking at him with a depressed face. That look seems to be blaming the middle-aged man for letting Xiao Yan go. "Hehe, is the little girl still angry?" The middle-aged man smiled faintly and showed a spoiled look in his eyes. I really don't understand. Why did you let him go? If you didn't show up in time, Qianqian's life would be gone. Seeing that the middle-aged man could still smile at this time, Murong Qianqian's pretty face suddenly showed a poor look like being wronged, and the tearful mouth in his eyes said, "Hihi, you girl, who ran out of the family alone and now caused such a great disaster, how can you blame me? Which of these injuries you suffered was not caused by yourself? If you stay in the family, who can hurt you?" The words of the middle-aged man immediately made Murong Qianqian a little speechless. Until the good film was engraved, he raised his mouth again, raised his nose and hummed softly, saying, "Even in the family, my father and my brother can bully me." Hearing the speech, the middle-aged man was stunned, even though he shook his head with a sad face and said again, "You girl, why don't you know what's good and what's wrong? They control you. Don't they also hope you can make less trouble outside in the future? Look at you now. Running around with others is a net trouble to others." In the middle-aged population, the words fell. Murong Qianqian's pretty face was warm and angry, and he wanted to speak again. However, the former made a sound again, and subdued the girl in front of him. "Besides, it's not just here. This time you left the family without permission, but your father and your brother were very worried. They were already furious before asking me to pick you up. If you don't be honest again, you should know the character of your father and your brother." In the end, the middle-aged man stopped talking, and the girl's face, which had just recovered, appeared a look of fear again because of the middle-aged man's words. He shook his head reluctantly. The middle-aged man ignored the girl and turned his eyes to Xiao Yang, who was lying flat on the void with his eyes closed at the moment. The fundus of his eyes quickly flashed a touch of pure light. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth slowly showed a smile and said, "In front of me, you don't have to continue loading. I just took the 4th level pill for you. Even if you are seriously injured, it's time to wake up now." The faint voice of words contained a sense of confidence that he was determined to win. At the same time, the eyes of the girl on one side quickly fell on Xiao Yang because of the words of the middle-aged man. Suddenly, a worried look appeared in a pair of beautiful eyes. It was not until the middle-aged man's words were heard clearly that the beautiful eyes flashed and passed a touch of difference. Cough. Although the injury in his body has recovered, Xiao Yang coughed a few times as soon as he heard the exposed words of the middle-aged man. At the same time, Xiao Yang was shocked. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man took him a 4th-order pill. "Younger generation Xiao Yang, thank you for your help. I apologize to you for what happened just now." Standing up, Xiao Yang found that with the strength of the 4th-level pill, he could stand alone in the void, but he arched his hands at the middle-aged man with a respectful attitude to express his gratitude. At the same time, he also apologized for the eavesdropping behavior just now. Seeing Xiao Yang's seemingly unimpeded appearance, the middle-aged man was also surprised. Although he took Xiao Yang a 4th-order pill, Xiao Yang's recovery speed exceeded his expectations. His eyes looked deeply at Xiao Yang, and the middle-aged man smiled faintly. His tone was still plain. "It doesn't matter. Listen to the news of Lung Bingshuang. Qianqian has your protection all the way. It's enough to bring her here. As for the pill, take it as a thank you." Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang bowed his hands respectfully to the middle-aged man again. Although the former doesn't have to be polite, Xiao Yang also knows that no matter what, the former is also an elder in front of Xiao Yang. Since he is an elder and has a life-saving grace to him, Xiao Yang should respect him. Seeing Xiao Yang's move, the middle-aged man couldn't help looking surprised. His eyes twinkled slightly. Immediately, the middle-aged man nodded and spoke again. "Now that the people have arrived and the danger has been lifted, it's time for us to leave." At the same time, the middle-aged man looked at Murong Qianqian. When the latter heard the speech, the look on his pretty face changed again. A pair of beautiful eyes immediately looked at Xiao Yang. There was a reluctant look in his beautiful eyes, and then he quickly spoke to the middle-aged man to block him. "Fourth uncle, Xiao Yang's injury hasn't healed yet. Let's leave now. If Zhao Xian comes back again, isn't Xiao Yang dangerous? You don't have to worry about it. His situation is much better than you and I imagined. Moreover, if I come forward, if that guy dares to turn back, I will kill him. As for you girl, if you don't want to annoy your father again, you'd better go back with me now, immediately." The middle-aged man stared at Murong Qianqian with a serious face. The expression on his face was no longer warm, which made the girl feel a little scared. The words fell, but the middle-aged man looked at Xiao Yang again. He knew that at this time, if he wanted Murong Qianqian to follow him back, his words might not play a big role. On the contrary, Xiao Yang might be able to make the girl obey. Ah! Seeing the eyes of the middle-aged man, Xiao Yan couldn't help but be a little stunned. Even if he hurried back to his mind, the moment he looked at the former, he saw the middle-aged man nodding to him secretly, his lips moving gently. Looking at that meaning, he seemed to be saying thank you. Seeing this, Xiao Yang nodded slightly and looked at the girl, forced her weak body, smiled and said, "Ha ha, girl, go back. I promised Lung Bingshuang that I would send you safely. Now that I have seen the elder, you are here. That's all I can do for you. Next, I should do something I want to do." The girl stared at Xiao Yang's smiling face. The ruddy color forced out on her face indicated that Xiao Yang seemed to be really all right. Until now, Murong Chanshan took back her eyes. Dai Mai frowned tightly and showed a sad expression between Dai Mai, which made the girl who was already hurt look more delicate and moving. "Come on, let's go. You heard that people have their own things to do. You." The middle-aged man spoke slowly, but this time, without waiting for the words in his mouth, the girl suddenly turned her eyes to him, a pair of beautiful eyes full of water vapor. At the same time, at this moment, she suddenly showed a fierce light that wanted to bite people. Ah! Seeing this scene, the words that the middle-aged population originally wanted to spit out were also forcibly blocked back. Immediately, he smiled and took back his eyes angrily. Obviously, the girl must have guessed the real reason why Xiao Yang said these words. Xiao Yang couldn't help shaking his head and sighing and laughing in his heart. Immediately after that, the middle-aged man pulled up Murong Chanshan again. This time, the middle-aged man looked at Xiao Yang for the first time. He had always been a plain face and showed a kind smile at Xiao Yang. If this smile was changed to other times, I'm afraid people of the same family can't see it, but I don't know, if Xiao Yang knew this, how would he feel in his heart? When the middle-aged man turned around with Murong Chanshan, the girl's eyes never left Xiao Yang. Alas! Seeing that the middle-aged man was about to leave with Murong Chanshan, Xiao Yang couldn't help but utter an inexplicable sigh. For Murong Chanshan, Xiao Yang certainly doesn't have any feelings for children and girls. He just takes Murong Chanshan as his sister. Although the time they spent together was short, Murong Chanshan's lively character made Xiao Yang have more fun on the dry road of cultivation. However, Xiao Yang was more or less reluctant to give up when he saw that they were about to separate. After this parting, I don't know if I can have a chance to meet again in the future. From the point of view that the middle-aged man is Murong Chanshan's fourth uncle, I'm afraid her family is also unusual. At least, there will be many strong fighting emperors. Moreover, from the point of view that cold and frost are related to them, I'm afraid there are strong people above the chemical source environment in their family. This alone is enough to make Xiao Yang look up to now. Of course, look up, but Xiao Yang also firmly believes that he may not be able to reach such a high level in the future. With the help of bone seclusion, after Xiao Yang's burning formula skill collection is complete and swallows more different fires, let alone the source environment, I'm afraid he can reach a higher level. Xiao Yang, thank you. However, at this time, the middle-aged man's gentle voice came again. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang was stunned at first. He immediately stared at her. His sight was not far away. The middle-aged man was holding Murong Chanshan in one hand. At the same time, he looked at Xiao Yang from a distance with a smile and noticed the eyes of Xiao Yang. The middle-aged man nodded at Xiao Yang and immediately continued to say, "Remember my name, Murong Hao. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, you can come to the Blue Eagle City in the Western Wasteland to find me. As far as you can, I will not be stingy to help." Murong Hao. Blue Eagle City. The two names were whispered in his mouth. Xiao Yang's eyes showed a little sigh. With this, maybe he didn't have a chance to see Murong Chanshan again in the future. When Xiao Yang looked up again, Murong Hao and Murong Chanshan had disappeared in the sky. In a twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang was the only one left in the world. Seeing such a scene, Xiao Yang doesn't feel empty in his heart. Maybe it's because he has gradually been used to the noise when Murong Chanshan is around. Now Xiao Yang is suddenly left alone again, but is not used to it. While comforting himself like this, Xiao Yang also cheer up again. Although Murong Chanshan has left safely, Xiao Yang's own affairs have not been solved yet. Now his identity has been discovered again. I'm afraid the people of the four major sects have also secretly known Xiao Yang's general location. Presumably, soon, they will send someone out to track down his whereabouts. With some malicious guise, Xiao Yang will inevitably be besieged. Once you let yourself fall into that kind of crisis, it will be a devastating blow to Xiao Yang. With this in mind, Xiao Yang's face could not help showing a dignified color. After thinking about it in his heart, He sat in the void, made a practice knot with both hands, closed his eyes slightly, and began to meditate and refine the pill in his body. Although the injury in the body can be recovered with the help of level 4 pills, it would be too slow to simply rely on pills to repair the injury. What Xiao Yang lacks now is time. When Xiao Yang appears, the 4 main gates are bound to move. At that time, Xiao Yang will no longer face the ordinary half-emperor, but the real strong emperor fighting. Before meeting them, if Xiao Yang can't have the strength to protect himself first, it will undoubtedly make Xiao Yang's situation more dangerous. Now, what Xiao Yang needs is to find all the herbs to refine ice elixir in the shortest time, and then start refining pills. But before that, Xiao Yang almost forgot that in order to get the most important main ingredient of ice elixir, Bingling cold liquid, at the same time, Xiao Yang must reach the level of a third-order herbalist. After all, the Back Bodhisattva is a third-order pill. If you want to get ice spirit cold liquid, you must take Back Bodhisattva as an exchange. If you want to refine Back Bodhisattva, first of all, Xiao Yang's level of herbalist must reach third order. At the thought of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing bitterly. Unexpectedly, in the end, he had to complete so many things in order to refine different fire. But on second thought, Xiao Yang was relieved. Anyway, no matter what he wanted to do, it was also to improve his strength. If he could really raise the level of a herbalist to level 3 as soon as possible, it would be a great good thing for Xiao Yang. What's more, it can also help Xiao Yang refine ice elixir. At that time, Xiao Yang will not only improve his soul power. As Xiao Yang was immersed in the refining of pills in his body, time passed quickly. In a twinkling of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, the heaven and earth where Xiao Yang is located has not been affected by any foreign objects. The warcraft entrenched here in the lower mountains dare not do anything else, just because of the figure sitting on the upper wall of the sky. Although Xiao Yang's breath converged in his body, the pressure released invisibly made the warcraft in the mountain below understand that this black-robed youth who seems to have only 6.5 stars is not easy to provoke. In particular, some warcraft who had witnessed the war 3 days ago were extremely afraid of Xiao Yang, who was lying in the sky at the moment. A person who can hurt even the strong fighting emperor. How can they be his opponents, who are only half-emperor level warcraft? Under such quiet refining, the injury in Xiao Yang's body is also recovering rapidly with the help of the terror of the fourth-order pill. However, in just a few days, Xiao Yang has recovered all the wounds left by the war that day. Until the 7th day, Xiao Yang's injury had completely recovered, which also made Xiao Yang marvel in his heart. The efficacy of the fourth-order pill was really extraordinary. Xiao Yang concluded that it would be difficult to recover in a month or 2 if he relied on ordinary imperial pills. However, now, a 4th-level pill can restore Xiao Yang to his peak again in such a short time. It has to be said that these high-level pills are really terrible. Whew! Slowly, a mouthful of turbid qi grew out of his chest. Xiao Yang closed his eyes for 7 days, trembled slightly at this moment, and opened them slowly. The dark eyes swept on him. Xiao Yang felt the fighting spirit in his body again, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help showing a smile. Sitting with his legs slightly forced, immediately, Xiao Yang stood up like a spring. While Xiao Yang got up, a crackling sound of bone collision also came from Xiao Yang's body. Su Shuang's feeling made Xiao Yang breathe again, and the smile on his face also gradually expanded. Xiao Yang can clearly feel that the strength of each fist and the speed of boxing are obviously stronger and faster than before. Although this weak growth seems not enough to be noticed, it surprised Xiao Yang. The growth of strength is not achieved at once, but through the accumulation and precipitation of time. Of course, the fastest cultivation is naturally the most intense battle. After countless battles, especially the confrontation with the strong emperor, Xiao Yang's strength growth rate is not comparable to that of other semi-emperor strong men of the same level. Although this change in Xiao Yang seems insignificant at the moment, Xiao Yang also knows that a little makes a lot. Only through long-term accumulation can we achieve the final success. Perhaps this growth is insignificant in the eyes of ordinary people, but once we can condense this change as a driving force, it will change into infinite vitality. Returning to his mind, Xiao Yang restrained his little excitement, looked up at the sky, chose a direction casually, and wanted to leave here. However, the next moment, Xiao Yang's face couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A sense of vigilance was mentioned in the depths of his mind. Someone is coming. Still fighting the Emperor. This video will end here.